is Michael Canty, and I am here with a few other members of the Lower Richland Heritage and Genealogy Society. I guess I'm the vice president for today. I'm just playing. So today I'm just going to give y'all a quick rundown on DNA. I'm not going to get too detailed because you can start getting into the weeds with that stuff, and we'll be here all day talking about stuff we barely understand. So I'm just going to give the basic breakdown on DNA, how it works, and then some of the websites that I've used and to use for research to back up the data that I already have, paperwork I've already had, and to verify a lot of paperwork as well, and also spawn new avenues which I might want to travel down. So I guess I'll just get started. I have a little slideshow here. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat, and I'll try to get to them as I'm going along. Someone mentioned Spotlight. I'm not sure how to. Do you not do that, or?
You should already be the main person on the screen. The rest of us are up at the top, should be.
Okay. Great. All right. All right, this is the presentation starting. Can everybody see this on the screen? You can just nod your head. So what is DNA? This is a presentation of trials, rediscoveries, and lessons learned. So DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. It sounds like a complicated word, and it's kind of hard to say, but you break it down in 3 sections: deoxy, ribo, and nucleic. Deoxyribonucleic acid. It's basically just a molecule that contains your genetic code. It's like the blueprint of who you are, you know, what you inherited from your ancestors. So on the left of the screen, you'll see the blue spinning, they call it double helix. The blue lines with the ladders going across it. And those are called base pairs. So those are very important when it comes to identifying the DNA and tracking it in the past. So you have four main pairs, 4 main chemicals in those pairs, proteins actually. Adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine. So those letters A, T, G, and C. Those are the first letters of those words there are very important when it comes to decoding DNA. So this is a genetic sequence. And if you notice on there, so it looks like a lot of gibberish, but if you notice, you'll see the A, the T, the C, and the G. Guanine, all those chemicals, adenine, all those chemicals, proteins I just named earlier, they are read laterally going down the double helix. So that double helix on the left-hand side, see how each of those colors coordinates with one of those proteins. And so they read the sequence by just staying on the left-hand side and just going, okay, that's adenine, that's thymine, that's guanine, that's adenine again. And just there's a sequence, an order. It seems random, but it's actually not random at all, because those proteins need each other to bind. And if they don't bind correctly, then there's problems further down the line in development. So this is what a genetic sequence, a DNA sequence looks like on a computer. This kind of technology is fairly new. I would say the DNA helix was discovered in the early 50s. And I think with the advent of computers and the progress of computers getting faster and stronger, it can analyze data quicker. And now they can do these codes in a blink of an eye. Well, Ancestry might say 2 months or a month, but it's really fast. They can do it really fast nowadays compared to how it used to be. And so now what they do is they can compare what your DNA sequence and another person's DNA sequence, and that's part of what they use to determine your ancestors. So getting into that, all across the world, 99.5% of our DNA is the same. All humans share 99.5%. But that DNA strand, the double helix strand is huge. I mean, it's tiny. I mean, it's microscopic, but it is a huge molecule in the nucleus of a cell. So there are actually 3 billion bases. Bases are those ladders that I showed you in the double helix. Those are the bases. So there's 3 billion of those ladder rungs, you can call them, or steps on the ladder in a DNA sequence. 3 billion, but 0.5% of that is 600,000. So these DNA testing companies look at 600,000 of those bases to figure out the differences in the humans, basically. I hope I'm not getting too deep there, but that's the general idea of how they analyze your DNA. Now, DNA testing works like this. Now, I like this little diagram because it's pretty basic, but it shows you, the lines and how DNA can get scrambled up between just parents and their children. And then you can imagine it's even more scrambled up, grandchildren and great-grands. And you'll notice sometimes you don't always inherit an equal amount of DNA from each parent. So you might get 60% of your DNA might be from one parent, or show up as from one parent, and 40% might show up from another. Or sometimes some people will say, I know I have Indian in my ancestry. This is the biggest one, really. And then they'll go get the test, and there will be no Indian in their DNA test. That doesn't mean you don't have the Native American ancestors. It's just that the DNA may have just disappeared, and maybe one of your grandparents didn't pass it down to you, basically. So that's generally how that works. It's kind of like, I always like to use the metaphor of if you have 100 box of pennies, and 100 pennies in a box, 100 pennies in a box, and you shake that box up and you count the heads and tails, you would assume that 50 heads and 50 tails, but that's not always the case. You're going to get 64 heads and 36 tails, or that way. I mean, that's more realistic. The probability is 50-50. That's an average, but every time you do it, it's rare if you ever get 50 heads and 50 tails. And so it's rare if you inherit this is my grandmother, so that means I'm 1/4 this. That's rare. That's a good way to average it out, but it's not exact. So you can inherit 10% from that grandparent, even though you're expecting it could be 25%. So the first DNA test I did was with a company called My Family Tree DNA. And they were partnered with National Geographic. This was in 2006, 2007. And it was brand new, unmapping the human genome, and National Geographic was pushing it. And all they could do back then was do Y chromosome test and your mitochondrial DNA testing. The Y chromosome follows your father's line. So females don't inherit the Y chromosome. It just goes from father to son. So a lot of females, if you want to get that tested, you have to go to a brother to figure out your father's line, because you still inherit other DNA from your father, just not this one tracer, this Y chromosome tracer. So it's passed down generation after generation, and it decays very slowly, so it's easy to track. I want to mention, I almost want to go back, but I want to mention that every generation, there's but after a few generations, there's mutations in your genes. Now people think of mutations as a bad thing, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes it's just, just a change in numbers. I mean, a change in letters. So like that GATC that we talked about earlier, the proteins. Sometimes it might be GATC, and then it might go GAAC, and then that trait might continue on. So what the DNA testers do is they take those patterns, they call them SNPs. Sometimes you see them SNPs in a lot of genealogical websites, SNPs, but it's like little snippets of little patterns in your genetic sequence that might change. One letter might change on there, and so in that letter, that shows off a branch. And so some people took that letter and went that way. So now the seq pattern went this way, and the other pattern continued all that way. So that's how they can kind of backtrack and trace the lines back. Now, when it comes to origins, like ancestral origins. Where did my people come from? What part of Africa? What part of Asia? What part of Europe? This technology, as I've learned more and more, it's good, but it's not perfect because they're relying on people's word to tell them what they are. So they'll go to France, and this person will say, yeah, my family's been in France for 6 generations, 7, 8 generations. We are French, we've been here as long as we count back. And then sometimes that's not always true, or sometimes they might have a Russian might have come in with the French. So it's not as precise as people like to take it out to be. You get the results, and people just get stuck on those results, and that's like, this is who I am, and then next thing you know, you'll see like updated results, and then that person that that ethnic group might have just disappeared out of your line. So we'll get there, but so it's not precise. I like to get there. It's still new, even though it's 67-year-old technology. It was discovered 67 years ago. That's fairly recent, and so they're still correcting errors in the way they sequence things. So this is your Y chromosome pattern here. This is the path that they believe humans took, the Y chromosomes path. Here it is out of Africa. You'll see right there where it says CR. That's they say the origin of the Y chromosome in the world when they find those are the original patterns for that DNA sequence. As people moved further out from there, those DNA sequence patterns had a little shift here, a little shift there, and some people parted ways, and then those parted ways. So this shifted, and so they label them with these letters, A, B, C, C3, to help you track the line of the father's line. I like looking at these maps because it just kind of shows. I don't know. I just kind of like to see that the way humans have traveled throughout the world over history. So this is my Y chromosome route. I'm actually the RM343 there, coming through France and went into Ireland and United Kingdom. This is my father's line, which I discovered through DNA research that I inherited through during slave times, at the end of slave times. So this is what my family tree DNA gives you. This is one of their graphs. So it's I like the presentation. It's pretty clean and easy to read. Now, mitochondrial DNA, I always remember M for mother, follows the female line, the mother's line, and is passed from mother to both of her children. So males and females can take this test. And like I said, it'll track, just like the Y chromosome test does, it tracks the mother's line instead of the father's line to her origin. So this is the mitochondrial path on Earth, and they labeled it the origin there. You see Eve there. They usually call the Y chromosome origin Adam. I don't know why I didn't show it on there, but you see they called Eve for the origin of the female line. And it basically follows the same path through the world, which is, makes sense. You imagine couples moving together, families moving together, tribes moving together. But I believe it's interesting what shows how many females came across into the Americas versus, I think, the Y chromosome that maybe had 1 or 2, and the females, that looks like 4 or 5 lines came through. So that's an interesting thing. It's funny just to look at that kind of stuff to me. I spend all day trying to track and figure out where it split and what people might look like. So, because a lot of times you backtrack on these paths, the people start looking more and more similar. You can see the changes in the people as you go across these paths here. It's like from China, say let's take that B line, the green B line in China, where the B is, you'll say people look Chinese there. And as you start going left from there, people start looking less and less Chinese, but you can still see the Chinese in them, and they won't even be in China, but they'll still have some Chinese traits. It's to me, that's mind blowing. So this is my mother's mitochondrial line, starting with Eve, going up into Sudan, and then she's actually the top. We're actually the top fork, going through Niger, Chad, and into Mali, and eventually over to the coast of Africa, where I believe my mother's line eventually was captured in Sierra Leone and came across in South Carolina. So now from my family tree DNA, Y chromosome, mitochondrial DNA testing to ancestry.com, which is one of my favorites, because it really assists you with your own data. You can merge your data and your DNA together to track, the census information and things like that. You can verify who's in the family, who was genetically in the family, who was adopted into the family. So it's a pretty cool website. Now the Y chromosome and the mitochondrial DNA are good for like the big shot. Like I'm trying to figure out, if you're trying to figure out where it started, that's the good for the Y chromosome. And they've gotten better over time. When I first started the Y chromosome test, it just showed you gave me some countries in Africa and said, this is the path. Now they're starting to link you up with other matches that are on that same test you took, and you can kind of figure out where a common match might be, which might help out your family tree. So that's where Ancestry excels, in my opinion. But breaking down, going back to what I was saying earlier about DNA results. These are my parents' results. I'm not sure, probably took me 10, 15 years ago. And, I'm looking at this and you see Polynesia on there and I'm like, Polynesia, what in the world? I don't even know where that could have come in. So I'm trying to figure out, trying to look back in my family tree, where these things could have come in. Also my mom's side, she always talks about having Native American blood in her family, and none showed up there. But then you look at my dad's side, who never talked about anything but, being from, African American, and he's got a lot of European and Native American blood in him, but he didn't know anything about it. So that was a big shocker. So with Ancestry, they give you this, and this was 15 years ago. Now, you can't really take a snapshot of this, but just kind of get an idea of what you see on the screen here. And then we're going to go to what I pulled. I think I pulled this morning. And these are the updated results. A lot of things are gone. A lot of percentages have changed. Some of them changed just a little bit, 1 or 2%. Some changed drastically, like 15, 20%. So, like I said before, this is a new technology. It's new. It's a new way of looking at human beings. And so the way they do these samples, like I told you, they compare your sample to someone who claims to be an original descendant of an area. And so as more people start contributing from, these countries, the old world countries in Europe and Asia and Africa, as more people contribute, the more refined the results become, because now they have a better polling of, people to give you a more accurate reading. But also what I like about Ancestry is you see these additional communities on the bottom. That's a pretty cool new thing they just added, where they actually start showing local DNA clusters in the United States. And so I have, like, it says East Central Piedmont African Americans, and that's just Clarendon, Williamsburg County, and that's it. And it's just a genetic cluster of people there. So I think that's kind of cool. It's almost like we have our own, almost like our own little tribe. So these are like just modern tribes. You can almost say, look at them like South Carolina Midlands African Americans. That's another one. South Carolina Low Country African Americans. So there's these little clusters of DNA that people are closely related to, or more closely related to in that area than they are to other people around them. So that's the new thing that I think is pretty impressive. So anyway, we'll keep going. But yeah, don't get stuck on these results, because they are likely to change. But they're fun to look at and talk about. So with Ancestry, they also sign you up with matches. Now these are some of my mom's matches. From first, second to sixth, the distant, because they don't want to tell you how far they might be far from you. So, and you can reach out to them and talk to them and try to figure out where the link might be. Try to, talk to them about, family culture, things y'all might do. And one thing I've found fun to do is, especially if you have like you think you have a tribal relation to, somewhere in Africa, or you have like you're related to somebody in the Orkney Islands in Scotland, or just something really like a small population, sometimes I'll just type, you can search through these results. So I'll type in Nigeria and search Nigeria. And sometimes I come across Nigerians who are related to me who have never been to America. So, and they are, you know, distant cousins, but I talk to them a lot of, like I said, they're friendly. They'll reach out. I'm asking them where they're from in Nigeria, what tribe or what people they might be part of. And they're proud to tell you. And it's pretty cool. And I've done the same thing with Ireland and the Cantys. So it's pretty humbling when you start reaching out and not even knowing if they're gonna respond back. Because sometimes they don't respond back. But just trying to get a feel for where the connection might be, and you're helping each other out. It's a mutual understanding, and you're both gaining from it. So that's just an example of my mom's relatives and my dad's distant relatives. And before I go on to JetMatch, I want to share, see if I can do this. Let's try this here. All right, can y'all see my ancestry page here? So up here at the DNA, this is how it looks when you get your results. This is my dad's test, actually. At the top of the screen, you can click the DNA button. And there's something here called through lines, which is pretty cool. I think someone brought it up right before we started. I think maybe Deidre brought it up to help with figuring out where you might be related to somebody. I just want to touch on this real quick, just because we talked about it. And it's a new thing that fairly new that Ancestry's doing, and it has helped me tremendously. So what through lines does is it's almost automatically trying to show you where your match is to other people that you might not have even looked at yet on your in your DNA matches. And they'll try to pinpoint the common ancestor. Now there's some errors there, but they generally have an idea of, okay, your DNA is following this path, that pattern, the AGTC pattern, backtracking is following this path. You're probably related to this person this far back. And then and if you don't have that person in your tree, sometimes they'll recommend that this person is your ancestor. So to get down to, so I already know these people. These are my grandparents and my great grandparents. I started getting down to the bottom. So it has any suggested matches. Then you start seeing these potential ancestor. See the bottom one, Mary Ellen Osteen, potential ancestor. Is that William Russell Canty, potential ancestor. So sometimes you can click those and it'll show you the path that might have been taken for you to be related to that person. So I can look at my mom, look at me, and go back up to Mary Ellen Osteen based on the genetics. Now, I have some hesitation about that because I'm not sure that Eliza Canty, who was a slave, came from Mary Ellen Osteen, who was European and married to a slave owner. That's a little tricky on that one, but it's possible. Let's see if I can go to my dad, because my dad, for example, he never knew his grandmother's maiden name, and nobody knew it. Like nobody in the family knows it, and I basically almost given up on that for now. And then I'm just scrolling through lines, and then Rose McClary pops up, and I'm like, well, Rose is the name of my great grandmother, but you know, I don't know if she was a McClary or not. So then you open up the page, and it shows you all of these matches from other people that have taken the test, that are related to you, and Rose is in their tree. See, I haven't proven how I'm related to these people any other way, but Ancestry is pointing to me that, hey, this is the person that is your common ancestor, which that's pretty cool. Now I'm starting to trust it a little more, because sometimes when something just pops up and say this is what it is, I have to double check and triple check everything. But I'm starting to lean towards maybe she was a McClary. There's a lot of McClarys on here that are my cousins that I have no idea how they match. and they're all, pretty out there. So that was pretty impressive. So that's just a little quick thing on the through lines. And I want to show you one more thing on Ancestry before we jump to the next. A little trick I like to do. Okay. So another update that Ancestry has done with their searches is at the top there, right underneath my title, you see unviewed, common ancestors, messaged, notes, trees, shared DNA, groups. All those are filters that you can use to segregate and minimize certain people and bring some people to the front of if you're looking for something. So I don't use mine, I use my parents since their DNA is a little stronger than mine is. Obviously I'm their child, so I try to use my parents whenever possible. But for instance, we'll go Roy Canty. This is groups button here. You can create these little groups. And you name them whatever you want to name them, just whatever you get a hunch, something might be. So you see I have Igbo, Nigerian link, Barbados, Guyana link, connection, Canty line. And this helps me when I'm doing my searches. So I can just say, I just want to look at people on the Canty line who have already highlighted in the Canty line. And then I'll hit apply. And these are all my cousins that I've already identified are Canty. See, there's a, this is why I want to bring it up. This is Deidre's husband, Patrick Harvin. That's his first name, right? Patrick. Deidre's done a few tests on here, so I'm just gonna make sure I have the right cousin on here. So I've put on here that he's related to me through the Canty line. I don't want to click on all these people's information and stuff while I'm on this live chat, but then you can click on related people, and you can see who else that you may not have matched yet matches that person. So that helps you, that may guide you to another ancestor or another aunt, a great aunt that went off somewhere that you never knew about, and now she's got another line out there. And so sometimes that helps as well. So that's just a quick ancestry thing. Like I said, that's one of my favorites. Now, getting a little more in the weeds here, we get the JetMatch. No, JetMatch is it's a doozy. It's more analytical, it's more scientific. There's no pretty pictures. I think they just changed their website so it looks a little better. It doesn't look as much as like a computer, like a computer printout. But it's a little more raw data. So with JetMatch, you get to see the matches that have done DNA tests, and it's free. This is a free service after you've done 23andMe or Ancestry.com or any of those other websites. You can download that data and upload it here, and they'll take it and reanalyze it again, even more detailed than those sites do. And then they'll start showing you can start looking at direct, like more, like Ancestry will show you countries that you believe your people are from, or a group of countries. This will break it down to people, like Yoruba people, the Homie tribe, all those smaller ethnic groups. And JetMatch is more suited for trying to zero in on those things further out, like further back though. This is not, unless you're from that area, this is not your grandparents. This is, people before they came to America, most likely, unless they're Native American. So JetMatch is a little more involved, but I like to use it, as I said, for that kind of stuff. And that's, like I said, that's always changing too. So I can be like, well, my great grandmother, I knew she came from, she was a Wolof, from the Wolof tribe. And then next thing you know, she's not, no Wolof information showing up again. But she's still probably from that area. It's just that maybe the person that said they're Wolof might not have been, or maybe more Wolof tests came in that were more like each other than the one that they already had that you matched. So it's not like they're lying to you, they're trying to change it up on you. It's just more information sometimes changes what your current understanding is. So one thing on JetMatch that's pretty cool, and I like to use this in combination with Ancestry.com, is the xDNA pattern. xDNA is something that's passed down, and it follows a weird path. In that center there, this circle, or this semicircle, there's that circle. The circle in the center there is to represent you as a male. So it could be your father, or it could be, I don't know, your uncle. So you see that the pink, these colors are kind of faded, but the pink to the right, the pink semicircle right to the right of it represents his mom. So he inherited that from his mom. His mom inherited from both of her parents, but her parents inherited from her father inherited from her mother, and her mother inherited from both of her parents. So females inherited both of these, males only inherit this from their mother.
Michael, we can only see your ancestry screen. We can't see your JetMatch screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. I gotta go back and do the share thing. Okay, thank you. Let's see. New share. That's it. Okay, this is this is the JetMatch computers lookout I was telling you. It looks so plain compared to all the pretty colors on Ancestry. But it's really just for analyzing the data. It's not for, something you can show in front of people and just talk about at dinner, because no one wants to really hear you talk about the process of getting information on here. They just want to hear about the end results. So who are related to? They don't want to see this S&Ps and the AGTCs and all. They don't want to see all that. And you can lose a lot of interest when it gets that deep in there. So one of the functions on the JetMatch is, like I was saying before, the xDNA. And the xDNA, you can click as a filter and it'll show you everyone that relates to you through your xDNA. And as I show you here, as it shows here in the center, that circle in the center represents a male. And the male inherits his xDNA from his mother, and she inherits it from her mother and her father. And that trend continues. So I've actually been able to find a few connections this way and figure out how to relate to some people through this method here, because it's so selective, I'll call it. It's so selective. So you match someone on xDNA, it's going to be on one of these paths. So it narrows it down. You see how many possibilities this whole screen has. I'm not even going to number how many possibilities in 5 generations. But when someone relates to you in an xDNA, you just have those highlighted colors, so that they're related to you somewhere on the path of those highlighted colors. So it greatly simplifies how you might connect with someone. So sometimes if you don't know how you connect someone, if they're on JetMatch, you can say, "Are you on JetMatch?" and say, "Yeah," and so they'll give you their chart number. This is communicating on Ancestry. You jump on JetMatch and you just click xDNA, and they pop up on there. You're like, okay, they've got to be one of these 15 to 30 people on my right hand side. So that's the path for the male xDNA. This is the path for the female xDNA. Same things, that she actually inherits. She has more inheritance. So there's more people to look at. So JetMatch, like I was saying before, provides you information for tribal or smaller ethnic groups all around the world. Like my dad, he put the Vikings on there because he matched Norwegian people, and then he also matches Igbo people. So getting towards the end, there are potential risks for participating in DNA research. You need to vet these companies, you need to read between the lines, read the lines before you agree, before you click that agree button. Just don't just scroll through it and click agree. Sometimes you gotta sit down and read that stuff, because nowadays things are starting to get funny and information blends, and you talk about something one day and it shows up on your phone the next day. I mean, it's getting kind of blended together. So you have to protect your identity, you have to protect yourself. So I put the CSI on here. I try to just make this page more lighthearted because it's a serious topic, but I wanted to not be a downer. So CSI, I put this on here because it's not necessarily a negative thing. Some people think it's negative, some people think it's positive, but it's something that happens. Sometimes the police, the FBI, CIA will use some of these data banks of DNA to match a criminal to a crime scene or to solve an unsolved murder. And they'll find out, oh, you're related to someone that did a DNA test. Her name was such and such. And they might even contact you and say, hey, do you know, like, oh, that's my brother. And well, your brother's DNA matches yours, and his DNA showing up at this crime scene. So sometimes there are some, I won't say it's a bad, it's just unseen consequences, I'll call them. Because it's a real world. So even though we're all on a computer and it's, we're digital and it's digital information and the screens and everything, this stuff affects real life, your real life. Another potential problem is health insurance. I think there's a scandal going on right now with, I don't want to name the company, but it's one of the big ones, one of the big 5, DNA companies, where I think they were busted for giving out their information to health insurance companies, that they could be prejudiced against how much they charge you for health insurance based on your DNA, based on a condition that you might have in your DNA. Like, it's almost like you gave them a sample to get, did a physical in their office, and they're like, okay, well, you're predisposed to heart disease, or you're predisposed to something else. And so they'll mark you, and no one's going to no one really talks about how much their insurance is with each other. So it's not like you have a good something to compare it to. So you're just kind of like, oh, this is my rate, and not knowing that the insurance company has actually gotten your DNA and is using that to give you a rate, almost like your car insurance uses your driving history from maybe 20 years ago. I know they erased it after 7 years, they say, but this is like the car insurance looking at your driver history from 20 years ago and saying, well, look, you did this 20 years ago, you must be a bad driver, and charging you rates based on that. I think it's 7 years, maybe 4 years that they cycle the rates and the points on your car, on your license and all that stuff. But so that just came, I think that broke last week. So be careful about this. And even then, I don't think they even gave permission to do that. I don't think they got permission from the people that participated in the DNA test to do that. So a lot of my tests, I try to keep it anonymous or fairly anonymous, unless the person just doesn't care. I like to use initials and things like that. And then the top one, keep the doctor. I can't read my pictures in the way. Keep the doctor on the shelf. So going back to what I was saying about the health insurance companies and how they can look at your DNA to see what you might be prone to. Companies, advertising companies, prescription companies, all these drug companies, pharmaceutical companies, they're not doing it, but it's something just to need to be cautious about. The potential for them to start targeting ads towards you based on what they feel you might need based on your genes. So right now you just get ads based on what you search online, and you might see they're recommending you this, and you might get an ad pop up for this. But it might start becoming more sobering when you start getting ads popping up for, I don't know, any kind of medicinal treatments or hospital treatments that you might have. And you never know, you might be doing a presentation like this, and I might get an ad pop up to say something about my health. I don't want that to pop up on the screen while I'm doing this, or it's just annoying in general when I'm on my phone when an ad pops up saying, hey, have you checked your blood pressure today? Or have you, that's good if you want it, but at the same time, who else knows about this through my phone, So there are some pluses, some great pluses, and there are some potential negative things, minuses, or just risk in general, unintended consequences that you just need to be aware of and when you do these DNA testing. And that concludes my presentation. If anyone has any questions, I'm free to answer them. I don't know what I did with my chat button. Oh, stop sharing. Oh, do you want to talk about your survey, Deidre? All right.
Well, we want to thank Michael for that excellent presentation. I'm sure you all probably learned a whole lot more than what you thought about. I sure did, and I've actually seen his presentation before, and this is actually even, better than the last time. I definitely like the analogy about what you said about shaking up, putting the 50, I however you said it. Say it again, because I don't know how you said it. But that was definitely an excellent example, and all the things about tracing your chromosomes from, you know, across how it travels, your Y DNA and your mitochondrial DNA and how those things travel. Those are excellent examples. And let's see. That's it. I have a couple of questions. If you can answer the poll, those of you who are here. The first question is, well, let me see, where's the first question? Let's see. Have you done a DNA test to research your genealogy? Because I know some people have done DNA tests for paternity tests, not for that reason, but just for your personal research. And are you interested in learning more? Because maybe we should have Michael come back and actually go into a little more detail on one of the particular areas. So I know he kind of skimmed the surface on a lot of topics today, but we definitely want him to come back and be able to do more detail. So please answer the poll. Let's see. Almost everybody has answered. That's pretty neat. So Michael, you can be thinking of questions next time for your next one, so you'll know.
Okay. Oh, I just see a question on here about DNA painting.
Isn't that a feature on JetMatch?
It is. I'm trying to pull it up now as I'm talking to you.
Okay.
I'm familiar with it. I'm not sure if you have a question about it, or I can pull it up real quick. I think I just got it up here. Well, let's see. There we go. Okay. Can I share my screen, Deidre? Is that okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
You still should be able to.
Great. Now, this is what I know of DNA paintings, chromosome painting, which is, I think I just thought it was just another way of looking at your chromosomes and what you inherit, what inheritance you have on each chromosome. So you can see the colors there. Majority is like gray color, West African. I don't know if I can zoom in there because it gets kind of tight, but there's a lot of trace strands of other, human clusters. Like the yellow is Northeast European and the red is South Indian, which that might be a little funny. Very little American blue. You can see that in there, little pieces here and there. That's Native American. But that's what I understand about the chromosome painting. At least I'm not sure of the term DNA painting. It might be the same thing. So, all right, you're starting to get deep on the chromosome painting. I have used it, not very much, for getting matches. For instance, the way I've used it is, say for instance, I'm trying to find a target ancestry. So if I'm trying to figure out, okay, well, I wonder who's related to me through my Native American side, I use that chromosome painting tool. There's another one too that I like better. I didn't pull it up, but it's a one that goes horizontal instead of the charts like that, and it has all the chromosomes at the bottom. And so I'll find where on my chromosome I have the most of what I'm looking for, Native American. So I was like, okay, my 17th chromosome has a lot of Native American there in between this centimorgans and this centimorgans. That's how they break down the little segments in your DNA on JetMatch. And so I'll use that and try to find other people on JetMatch that match me in that area. And that's how I've used. I haven't verified if it worked, but that's how I've used it. So at least he'll match me within this region of my genes, of my chromosome, and that's part of my genes, my chromosome, that's also Native American. So there's probably a chance that they're related to me through my Native American ancestry. So that's how I use that. There may be other ways to use that painting that I'm just haven't come across yet, but it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun stuff.
I know when you said beware about using some of, you know, the JetMatch and different things. I removed mine from JetMatch, and since they've updated some things, I decided I'll probably go ahead and upload mine back to JetMatch. But one of the things that I found very interesting about it was allowing them to do the predictions. And I don't know if they still have that, but one of the things I tried it, I just wanted to see where it predict your eye color just from your DNA. And I was surprised at how spot on it was, because even though my eyes are hazel, it predicted blue, and my eyes were blue when I was born.
Wow.
And so I thought that was pretty amazing. When I sent that to my parents, they were blown away, because nobody would, you know, other than people who know me, you know that, but that was pretty blown away that they determined that just from my results.
Yeah, JetMatch has a lot of neat tools, like stuff like that. They also have some things where you can actually rebuild. They say like rebuild your ancestor through your DNA and DNA of your cousins. So if you know your if you know a match on there and how you're related, if you have like 4 or 5 cousins on there, and you know how we're all related. We have one ancestor that I know we came from, like my great grandmother. They can, I don't know how they do it, but they take the DNA and they compare all of as much as they can, and they can recreate the person that the DNA came from. So they'll recreate that common ancestor digitally, I'll say, through with numbers, that CATG proteins. They'll recreate them that way. Now, that starts getting a little too theoretical for me, I guess you could say. I mean, I've tried it and it hasn't really done much for me, but it's a fun attempt at, you know, trying to help people. Also, I know JetMatch, they have an option now where you can opt out of letting your information be used by law enforcement thing. But I know on JetMatch, I need to double check, but I strictly use initials or aliases on JetMatch for my, just because.
Yeah, now you see the benefit of using aliases. Aliases get on your nerves on Ancestry, but when you're thinking about JetMatch, where you're kind of like just throwing your DNA out there, the alias is pretty nice.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions?
See another question here about assisting with finding a mother. I've never done that before. I mean, I would love to help. So I put type my email in the chat here, and just send me a message, and maybe there's something I can help you look at to help you do that.
There's a hand raised. Val, do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I don't know if I could be heard. Yeah, that was me that typed in about the, you know, assistance in helping to find my mother. And I'm trying, I know you said that you was going to type it in the chat. Did you type it directly to me or?
Oh, I'm sorry. I typed it to Deidre Harvin. Let me see everyone. Okay.
And I appreciate the help.
Yes. Looking forward to seeing if I can help you out there. That'd be great if we can figure out something.
Miss Eva, do you have a question as well or a comment? You have to unmute, Eva. There you go. Do you have a question or comment?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I could not hardly hear any of the message. I tried to hear it, but I just could not hear it.
Okay, well, I'll send you the YouTube link at the end. Can you hear us now?
It seemed like it like I was muted or something.
Well, see, when you're muted, we can't hear you, but you should still be able to hear.
Well, I can
Yeah.
hear him vaguely, and I just think that I missed some very important information.
Yeah, you probably
because I
have
could
your
hardly hear
sound,
him.
you
Excuse
have
me?
your sound turned down on your phone. You have your sound turned down on your device.
I was trying to get it turned up. I just could not get it to work.
Yeah, so that's what it is, your sound. But when we mute you, we can't hear you, but you should still hear us.
Vague. I can hear you vaguely.
Right, because your device is turned down low. So you need to
Well,
get
I
your
was
volume.
trying to get to that, get to turn it up, but if you
Yeah.
could send me some information, I thought the information that he was giving, what I could hear, was very important. I'm trying to get my daughter to go through ancestry.com to get some information about my husband's family. And I think that if she go through them, they will send her some information. The question I had was, sometimes after, can you really count on them to give you good information and correct information?
Yes. Yes, you can. Michael can answer that as well, but I'm just saying personally because I know you personally. Yeah, it's very trustworthy. I tested myself and both of my parents, and we're related. And my daughter is my daughter, and other relatives. My dad did not know for certain who his biological father was, and we have matched very consistently with many people to his biological father's side of the family, including a first cousin. Even
well, the
though
reason I asked, you mentioned something that they predicted that your eyes was well, the same thing happened to my daughter. When she was born, her eyes were blue, and then they turned out to be hazel brown. So my husband has hazel brown eyes, but then I think that she needs to do the ancestry, and that would tell her exactly where the brown eyes came from, because she definitely was born with blue eyes.
So when she does the ancestry DNA or any of the other DNA tests, as Michael Canty discussed, and then uploads them to JetMatch, JetMatch does all of those unique features. And Michael, you can go into that more.
I was gonna say, I'm not sure if it was tell you where the eyes came from. I didn't do that test, but I know it's just a little predictor, little game, but I don't know if it's like going to tell you where it came from. That might be a little harder to figure out. That would probably take some census information, some draft records, because that's when they list, draft records. They'll list eye color and height and weight and that kind of stuff. But you already have an idea of where it's coming from, then you can kind of move on.
Yeah, basically, I think it's coming from the Bells and I believe the Millers side. That's where I think it's coming from, but I want her to be sure. It's no doubt to me that's where it's coming from, but and she seems to need to know where exactly it came from, why she has brown eyes. I know exactly because it's back in the generation.
Well, if you want to, you can shoot me an email if you want to, and we could I probably take a quick look at just an ancestry, just through census records, and see if anything pops up. And sometimes you might find something, sometimes you don't. So, but yeah, I wouldn't mind taking just a quick stab at that too. If you want to send me an email and just with your husband's, maybe his parents' names and something like that, we can start from there, and I can just run it up from there. I see Cynthia asked a question about the haplogroups. Which you mean additional information as far as the path of my ancestors, or I'm just curious as to what. Miss Green. Oh yeah, trying to unmute. Mm-mm. There
Oh,
you
there.
go.
Okay. I was just wondering, my maternal haplogroup is L0,
Okay.
which, you know, I don't find other people in my group, which I'm assuming that's one of the first ones to be identified, is why it says L0. And that's identified through at 23andMe.
Okay. So have you found that on the that world map I had?
I saw it, yes.
Okay, so I have it up now. Well, I have it on my screen, but it's the one that goes south from Eve.
Yeah, it looks like it goes, I don't know, into the Pacific area.
No, well, I have it going through into South Africa, like down
Well, I think that's where it might originate because it identifies the San people.
San Bushman.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. They're in South Africa.
yeah, at least there were, or what's left of them are
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I mean, they're on the South Africa, but yeah, if it goes, I can share my screen real quick. And I just pulled it up. I wish I could zoom. Oh, zoom in. I don't know how to zoom in on here. But yeah, you see Eve and then L0 to the south of the Eve.
Uh-huh. But don't you follow it? Oh, is that it?
I'm zooming in so I can get it better. Yeah, L0 is Eve there, and then L0 going down into towards South Africa in that area.
Okay, but doesn't it also go up and out? I thought I saw a gray line up there also.
There is a gray line now. I think that's M. Yeah, M. That's the line that the people in Australia, the Aborigines.
Yeah, I just wondered because I have like it says Polynesia, Melanesia, some of those other areas down there that are in the Pacific.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
On your L line or ancestry test?
My ancestry test, and I did a test with crygenetics.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was just wondering, I'm thinking that's probably what identifies some of the the Polynesian, Melanesian, all of those places. Because we do know that those people originated in Africa too.
Yeah, that's true.
The indigenous people did.
Now, how long ago did you do that test?
The 23andMe is a couple of years old.
And the one with the haplogroup? That's 23andMe one?
Yes. And I also took the crygenetics test, but I know that some people are currently recoding the haplogroups.
So,
Because I know that they did that with the E1B1 alpha people, that they are recoding those haplogroups and, for whatever reasons.
that'd be interesting. So like I said, I mean, they're probably gonna update it. It might not look, well, I'm sure it'll look similar to what it looks now, but they might have some changes on there that verify the weird things you see on Ancestry or something that doesn't seem like, where does that come from? Maybe they'll verify it when they redo the data.
Well, I have that on my crygenetics test too, except for a lot of people who were L0s are now L3s. And they link you to a couple of Chinese tribes and a couple of the ones in Vietnam, Philippines, and some other places. Now those are very small traces for me because I have, almost 99% African.
That I'm curious about that. That seems funny to me. I don't know why. Because I see here, B and the D and the M are all in Asia there. L0 and they may have had L0 before going through taking that route. And there's a mismatch as they're updating. Maybe somebody's behind or someone's too far ahead. And so the information doesn't correlate with what I have on this chart. But this is out of this chart this morning. So this is what my family tree has as of today. This is now looks different from what I had before. So I know I know it's changed, but I never paid attention to that part as I have been paying attention to the L's in Africa. So I'm gonna have to go back and look at some of my old presentations, see if I can find an old one, see how different it is. But yeah, it's always morphing and doing stuff.
Yeah, I do understand that. But on some things, I tend to agree with the original information before they started updating how they code things.
Yeah. Sometimes if it's gone, it doesn't mean that it was wrong there either. You know, sometimes you see something on there, it doesn't mean like if you have Native Americans, sometimes it won't show up. It doesn't mean that you don't have it. I mean, if they remove something out of your DNA test, it may not mean that you don't have that DNA in it. It just means that there's something, like I said, in the coding or populate in the sample population. So somebody might be, sometimes, like I said, somebody might claim to be part of a tribe, but they're actually mixed in more with another tribe than they are with the one they thought they were part of. They just always lived with those people, so they thought they were those people.
Right, that's what I was going to suggest is more population samples. The more samples, the more people are tested, the more everything is, because I mean, if they go and test, 2 people, in, Ireland, and they go test, 100,000 in some place in Africa, then your results are going to change drastically because of the population sample. It's going to invert some of your other numbers, especially when they do those scatter plots and everything.
And most of these companies have admitted that they're lacking samples in Africa. So that's probably where we're going to see a lot of the variations and a lot of changes.
In Africa, Asia, India.
And Southeast Asia, India, yep. A lot of the tropics, because I mean, people are hard to get to sometimes in those areas. Because they're trying to get like the people that are out there on their land that have been there for generations and generations. And so, but if you go to Europe, you'll see, 10 times the amount of samples there because everyone's so accessible. Everyone probably can mail their ancestry tests in all of Europe, most of Europe. But in Africa, they might have to go out to people and take the set test themselves. So the data is coming in delayed, and with that, you're going to have some delayed changes. But it's like I said, it's sometimes it's heartbreaking when you see what's something on there that you feel like you identify with, and then it disappears, and you're like, "What? I thought
I wouldn't be brokenhearted." If you have an opportunity to take a look at a crygenetics result, because it breaks it down and it tells you when a certain type of DNA entered your DNA stream.
Okay,
it's very interesting. And then it breaks what they have from Africa and other places down into tribes, and they actually identify African Americans as a tribe.
Okay, I'll check it out. Check that out.
Yeah, it's interesting. If you can't find it, contact me, and I can send you my results.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna ask you if you can type the name of that DNA sample people there in the chat. That way I can write it down and check it out. Because not to go on tangent, but I remember my mother's line was showing Polynesian as well. And so I'd spent hours and hours and hours and hours of research trying to figure out where that Polynesian link could have come in. And I was looking at all kinds of theories of mankind traveling across the Pacific Ocean into the Americas. And maybe that's why my mom thought she was Native American, but it was actually just Polynesian blood that came across. I was way into it, and then it went away, and I was like, well, that's been all.
The Hawaiians were actually, they are Polynesians, and they were originally identified as Africans.
And that's one of the theories, is that the Polynesians moved to Hawaii. Now they can find Hawaii in the middle of the biggest ocean in the world. They find these tiny little islands Why couldn't they find the large wall of land that is the Americas on from there?
Well, you asked that as a question, but people do believe that they did.
No, it's a theory. It's a theory.
Yeah.
So I was starting to run with that theory that that's how maybe the Polynesian blood got into my family. And my mom always said her line was Native American. Like, well, maybe they're Native Americans originally from Polynesia. So I was going down that rabbit hole, and like I said, I did a lot of time. And now I just I put it on the back burner because, you know, it's almost like just daydreaming at certain points. You know, you can't really verify it. It's just kind of theories. So I try to more on the things I can get paperwork on most of the time.
It's all fascinating.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Michael while we got him on here? Any other questions?
Write that down. ICRI.
Okay, Marie, do you have anything you would like to say to wrap us up?
Well, unfortunately, Rose was not able to join us for this very informative session. I know I have had 2 challenges with family research recently, so it looks like Michael has helped point me in the right direction. And I encourage all of you to keep in touch with the Lower Richland Heritage and Genealogy Society for the next program that we'll have scheduled either in August or in September. I'm not sure. I wish Rose were here to let us know. But we have very interesting workshops and sessions that we are all excited for all of you to join us if you're able to. And thank you so much for joining us for this session.
I'd like to give a shameless plug real quick. I do have like a little service that I offer. It's really inexpensive. And what I do is I do ancestry research for you, and just like a basic start to identify ancestors. And it's like, I call it $5 family tree, or $5 family history. And basically it's a little cheesy, but if you're trying to figure out, you know, some ancestors that you don't know the names of, if I discover that ancestor, it's $5. That's it. And then whatever information I give on that ancestor is free after that. So if you need to know your great grandfather, identify him, and that's $5. And then if I come across his will or his death certificate or his birth certificate or anything like that, I would just give that to you for free after that. But it's kind of like a get started service to where you can get a name so you can look around. So that's it.
I'm interested in that, Michael.
I'll retype my email's in the chat. I'll retype it again, and we can get started. It's like I said, it's just a little quick thing. Nothing. You're not gonna get like a booklet from me or anything like that. You might just get some images and the text message, or I can print it out for you. But it's just a simple discovery, so you're not spinning your wheels.
Yeah, that's the beginning for me. I appreciate that. Yeah.
If I can't find anything, I don't charge you. That's how.
That's even better. Thank you. It was really informative. Like I said, I really don't know where to begin with technology. With DNA is really, really tough. It's really exciting. I'm so old school. I was thinking of the basic, but I'm glad I attended. It gives you a beginning of somewhere, which I appreciate.
Good. So I might have a cousin on there.
I never know. I know some Cantys here in New Jersey. I went to school with a Canty. Some Cantys.
Okay. Yes. I'm gonna Google you and my matches too. Cynthia.
Okay.
Well, Cheryl, that's how Rose and I found out that we were cousins. I put my tree on My Heritage and she contacted me online, and then we both did our DNA test and found out we're actually cousins. On both sides. Yeah, we're related on both sides, on my mom and my dad's side.
And you know what, back in years and years and years ago, family members married each other.
Well, this wasn't that. It just happened to be that that
No, not
wasn't
that
it.
I'm saying that, but that was
Yeah.
that's his. I'm a history person. I love history. Isn't that amazing? Now I am Tyler's aunt on the father's side.
That's awesome.
son.
Yes,
Her son's Rose's son is my nephew.
that's awesome. Glad to have you with us today, along with everyone else.
Thank you. I was glad to be here. Nice presentation, Mike. I enjoy it. Keep in contact with me so we can get started.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. And everyone, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, right, Deidre?
Yes, or you can respond and say you would like respond to the email and send a message to the Lower Richland, what is it, HGS@gmail, and let me know that you would like to keep getting updates, and that way I can go ahead and send you messages concerning what we're doing. But mainly we are on Facebook.
Yeah, and hopefully.
Oh, and YouTube. I'm sorry, we do have the YouTube channel.
YouTube
So
also, yeah.
right, so YouTube as well. And so I usually do send the video to everyone who attends. I send the video to them, actually to everyone who registered. I will send the video to you and to your email afterwards. All right, well, I think this is it. I think we can stop here. Thank you all for attending today, and thank you, Michael, for the great presentation.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for the great questions.
And I'll be in touch about my new cousin.
Oh yeah.
I need some help with her.